Welcome back, guys, or if you're new to my channel, this is Automotive Anonymous, and that's the 2026 GMC Canyon. And what more fitting of a location to film the Canyon than in a literal canyon? This is even GMC's most capable version of this midsize truck, the AT4X, and it's in a paint color that they like to call sterling metallic, which on a sunny day like today, I think it looks absolutely fantastic and really complements the off-road capabilities of this truck quite well. But despite this being potentially the best looking of the midsize trucks and one of the most capable, it's not perfect. So today I'm going to share the good, the bad, and the ugly about the 2026 GMC Canyon to help you guys at home decide if it might be the right midsize truck for you, or if you should leave it at the lot and look at the other competitors. So today you can expect to see a walk around, all the specs, initial driving impressions, 0 to 60 on GPS, and then my final thoughts. And huge thanks to Rob Green in Southern Idaho for letting me borrow this one for the day. I'll link them below if you're interested because they sell below MSRP, they ship all over the country, but also huge thanks to Lasfit, our channel sponsor, but more on them in just a few minutes. Let's dive right into this review. And thank you so much for watching car videos on YouTube and supporting what I do here. But if you get anything out of this video, you like the GMC Canyon, or you just appreciate the effort it took to make this video, please consider liking it, comment your thoughts and opinions below, subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much. But if you're new to GMC, or the GMC Canyon, there's a few cool things that you should probably know. GMC is part of General Motors. They were founded in the early 1900s by a pair of brothers in Pontiac, Michigan. And only a few years later, they were bought by General Motors, the same company that owned Chevrolet. So the Canyon, the Colorado, they've become pretty popular midsize trucks. The very first one for each of the brands rolled off the assembly line for the 2004 model year. They replaced the compact trucks, which used to be the S10 and the Sonoma, and these have really gained a lot of popularity. Although the Canyon only sells about a third as many units as the Colorado, it's still doing pretty well, about 30,000 units a year. They're also sold in Canada, and they're homegrown. They're assembled in Missouri, which is pretty cool. There's 4 different trim levels, though, of the Canyon. They start at about $39,000 for the Elevation, but this is the AT4X. This one has a few options. It stickers for about $62,000 before the Rob Green discount. So for $62,000, what do you get? You get a vehicle that for the 2026 model year, it's only expected to be a 4-star crash test rating. But that's not necessarily uncommon for a body-on-frame midsize truck. The main reason is because this has a frame which is designed to be rigid, rugged, haul a lot, tow a lot, and because of that, it's not necessarily the best crumpling thing to help slow down the impact of accidents to help protect you and your family. But when you do spend 60 grand on an AT4X like this, you get a lot of active and passive safety features, and while they might not all be as good as 3.0 safety sense in the new Tacoma, they actually work pretty well. They're not the worst in class, so I think this is a pretty decent middle of the road. But beyond that, you get really bright LED headlights. You have a very aggressive GMC front fascia, 360-degree cameras, LED fog lights, a 32.7-inch tire, which has full tread. You also have these running boards, or rock sliders. Unfortunately, they are only mounted to the body and not the frame. You already have a bed liner, a sunroof, heated, ventilated, powered front seats, a heated steering wheel, and quite frankly, a lot of other things that you're just going to have to wait to see throughout this video. The first generation of Canyon, about 20 years ago, was offered with 3 different cab configurations, 2 different bed lengths, and 3 different engines depending on the year. Now it's only offered as a 4-door with the 5-foot bed, but overall this, like most other midsize trucks, is pretty manageable on the road. It's way easier to drive than a full-size truck, let alone a heavy-duty or a diesel. It's about 17.75 feet long. The wheelbase is now nearly 11 feet, and then it's well over 6 feet wide and about 6 feet tall. This thing also has a 1,200-pound payload capacity, which for the DSSV Multimatic suspension, that's pretty impressive. This can't tow as much as a regular Canyon, so instead of 7,700 pounds, it's down to about 6,000 pounds because of the suspension setup, but that means it has about 10.5 inches of ground clearance, a 342 final axle ratio, and it can do a full circle in the mid 40-foot range. The last couple things to mention out here is the gas door is located on that bulged out driver's side fender, but unfortunately, when you lock the vehicle, the gas door doesn't appear to want to lock. so the bums might try to siphon some of your 21.4 gallons of fuel. This thing is rated for about 17 city, 17 on the highway. So you guessed it, you have about 361 miles of range to play around, to have some fun, especially if you keep your foot out of the Turbo Max engine. And then it has a square stance with a full-size spare tire underneath the bed. This is a 32.7-inch tire. It's a Wrangler MT. It has about 30 seconds of tread, and it's a 285/70/17. And then this is your key. You have lock, unlock, panic button, remote start, but you can just leave it in your pocket because you do have proximity key features right here to lock and unlock the vehicle. But now we're going to take a minute to thank today's sponsor, Lasfit. I know a lot of you guys have heard of them, but some of you haven't. If you haven't, they are a name brand company that specializes in a few main categories. One of them is LED upgrades for the interior and exterior of your late model vehicle, but the other ones are bed mats and floor mats. And in the case of the GMC Canyon, you can get a set of floor mats for the interior, a bed mat for the back. With my discount code of AA20, really not that much over $200 for all of that. When you look at the main automakers, usually you're going to spend over $200 for a worse quality, inferior mat that only covers the interior, let alone several hundred for a bed mat. So if we look at these factory AT4X $60,000 floor mats, I mean, they do have a little bit more sidewall protection than some of the other ones I've compared. They don't even have full dead pedal protection, and they're still, I mean, there's a little bit of rigidity to them, but honestly, they're still not as good as the Lasfit. So whether you have a lower trim level Canyon, the AT4X, or quite frankly, any other new vehicle, I highly recommend you check them out. Their floor mats are far superior to most other brands, most other makers. And that's pretty impressive, especially when you think about the fact that they're only a little bit over $100 for the interior and a little bit over $100 for the bed. So check out Lasfit with code AA20, you get 20% off, and I've highly enjoyed using them on my own vehicles. Thank you, Lasfit, for sponsoring today's video. Otherwise, I think you guys can already tell on camera, this is a tall truck, so you have to be a tall person or at least be good at jumping to get into the interior of the vehicle. But for a mid-sized truck, the window, the visibility, all this glass surface area is actually pretty good. You have power memory seats. You have very nice soft touch materials below, kind of the cheaper GMC plastics that catch all the light, the UV rays, all that stuff. So they're going to age well. They're going to hold up well. You could have a bigger bottle and snack pocket. I'm not sure why the AT4X is such a small one, but at least you have the wall tray or the phone tray up there. And then this does have Bose speakers. The door sill really doesn't have a whole lot. This doesn't appear to have a knee airbag. Again, part of the reason it's a 4-star. You have the hood release, trailer brake, dashboard lighting. So I like that there aren't any blank buttons on this like you sometimes find even on the higher end trim levels, which doesn't really make any sense to me. And then you have lots of vents, turn signal lighting stock. You have the leather wrapped heated steering wheel, very nice leather wrapped powered seats that have heat and ventilated features, AT4X stamped in, and a sunroof up top. Sitting inside the AT4X really feels like a special place to be. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of all the reflections, all the glass. I do not love that, especially when the sun is behind you and it tries to blind you and all you see is your own reflection of your chest. I don't necessarily understand that, but overall this feels like a very high-end, very nice vehicle. For 60 grand, it doesn't feel cheap. This has also the brightest heads-up display of any vehicle that I've ever seen. The gas is pretty linear, even with the big old turbo. And the brake feels really nice too, and I love that you have the big GMC on the center of the steering wheel. The horn, it's not too high pitched, which is good. You can also go through all of your center displays, which is nice. So if you do like the big screen, I think you're going to love the software built in. You have your adaptive cruise on the left. You do have your lane keep assist button right there. Auto start stop, your lockers, you can drop the windows, your aux if you have something plugged in. Physical HVAC controls are awesome. I still don't love that the headlights are controlled through this button in the screen, but it's okay. This is also still in demo mode. That's the type of thing you try out for yourself. And then down here, I would actually like a little bit more storage. You do have a wireless charger, some plugins, the backup camera, and the 360-degree camera looks really good. You have your drive modes. There's no sport mode, but there is a Baja, and that's kind of fun. You have 4-wheel drive auto, electronic parking brake, you have your cup holders, and then you have a lifty tray. Inside, not the biggest in-class center console, but it's pretty deep, it's pretty good. And then you have your controls for your lighting overhead and your sunroof. Does this have LED or incandescent? I think that's LED, but on camera it kind of looks more like an incandescent. Anyways, let's turn this off and hop in the back. The back of the Canyon is pretty interesting. First of all, the door panel opens up really wide, so it should be easy to get in and out of it, except for the fact that those seats are like 4 feet off the ground. There's a lot of height. You have to jump up really high, and unfortunately there is not a B-pillar handle. I know there is the roof handle up here, but I prefer a B-pillar handle on a truck. The materials follow suit for the front. They are very nice. I love the window visibility. You can lift up the seat and you can hide some goodies under there. So comment below what you're gonna hide. One of my favorite features is the white leather follows into the back, as well as the red seat belts, how this one is optioned. I think that's really neat that GM is doing a lot of colored seat belts these days. But you have a map pocket, you have cup holders, you actually have vents, unlike a lot of mid-size trucks, so that's a huge win for the GMC and also the new Colorados. And then you have armrests with cup holders, but they should be rotated so you can fit your arm and your cup. Unfortunately, they're not. And I don't know why almost every automaker other than Honda does them that way. Anyways, let's hop out and I'll show you the bed. I think the back of the Canyon is one of the best looking mid-size trucks. It's very simple, very straightforward. You have an old school antenna, the third brake light, vertical brake lights with the backup. You have a little bit of aggressive MT tire poking out the side with a very wide set of fenders on the front and the rear. You also have the little handle to pull yourself up. Unfortunately, you don't have the step on this one, although it does look like it could belong there if that cutout, that plastic piece wasn't there. But you have a lot of backup sensors. You have your trailer plugins, your trailer hitch, GMC stamped into the back. And when you lock the vehicle, the tailgate locks, which is a really nice feature to have. You don't want the bumps coming back through your tailgate on their second trip around. But then it is slow to lower. It has a ruler. It has some storage hidden in the tailgate, which is pretty cool. And then you have a 400 watt outlet, like your household style. That's not a lot of wattage because this is not an EV. This is not a hybrid. It just doesn't have the battery support for that. But it is already, bed lined. Has GMC stamped in. The older ZR2s had ZR2 now. I think they just have the Chevy bow tie. You have some plug-ins, tie downs on each corner anyways. And then you can fit a Lasfit bed mat in here for a little bit over $100, and it seems to be a really good fit. Even after pulling it right out of the box to put it in the back of here, it hasn't even had time to settle in and to flatten out, which is pretty cool. And then when it's time to lift this up, it's pretty easy to do. But overall, this bed is about 42 cubic feet. It's about 21 inches tall, 62 inches long, and then between the wheel wells, 45 inches, between everything else, up to 58 inches. The passenger side is really nice too. AT4X on the door, proximity key features. You can see the 360-degree camera. And when you open this thing up, you'll notice the same quality of materials. You'll notice you even have power options for the seat. AT4X stamped in onto those regular floor mats. Heated, ventilated, powered, all that stuff. And the glove box is actually pretty decently sized. But with that said, let's come around to the front. I'll pop the hood and I'll show you what the 2.7 liter Turbo Max engine looks like. Under the hood is a 2.7 liter Turbo Max engine with a big spinny boy turbo on the passenger side. This thing puts out 310 horsepower at about 5,600 RPM and 430 pound-feet of the twisty torque as low as 3,000 RPM. So basically this turbo 4-cylinder puts out more power than any regular production V8 from before 2010, around then. And it's pretty simple to work on. You have a battery, a fuse box, your reservoirs, your air filter goes right through all the plumbing, the piping, it spins through the turbo, then it comes back around for the intake manifold. You can see the coil packs on the front. If you remove this baffling, you could really see the front accessory driving the serpentine belt. So honestly, I think this is a pretty easy engine to work on because it's only 4 cylinders. There's a lot of room to work on it under the hood, and I'm excited to take this for a drive. So let's drop the hood and do that. Initial driving impressions of the 2026 GMC Canyon AT4X. Let's get up to speed. That's not even full throttle. This Turbo Max engine sounds really good in person. Sounds a little bit beefier than a 4-cylinder, which I'm not surprised because this has more power than the first generation Canyon with the V8, which is kind of crazy. But just like the Colorado, the side mirrors are not as big as I wish they were. Thankfully, this does have quite a few safety features. Visibility is on par with a lot of the other mid-sized trucks. The hood is very aggressive. It's very parallel to the ground. It's very bold and, it looks good from the outside. But the visibility, it's okay because I do feel like I sit fairly high up in this specific example. But because the cabin isn't that big, you can see right down the center. And honestly, driving the AT4X, driving the $60,000 Canyon for a mid-sized truck, that's expensive. But this is a very nice vehicle. It's very capable with the big wheels, with the front and the rear locking diff. It even has ventilated seats, a sunroof, very fancy suspension without compromising all of the payload. Having over 1,200 pounds is still pretty impressive. And then turbo power to get you out of the corner, to have a little bit of fun. And honestly, even these Bose speakers sound pretty good because this truck seems to be better insulated than a lot of mid-sized trucks, especially from the last generation. Is it perfect? No, but is it a heck of a lot of fun? Yeah, it certainly is. And if you have this much money to spend on a mid-sized truck, I highly recommend you check out the GMC Canyon. But always test drive the competition. There's a lot of good competitors out there, but I'm having a blast in this one, so much so that I'm gonna go find the private road and we're gonna see how fast it is. 0 to 60 in the 2026 GMC Canyon AT4X. Keep in mind, density altitude is 4,000 feet, so depending on how well this turbo can compensate for our elevation, it could be down on power up to about 5%. Traction is off, Baja mode is on, and we are in 4 auto. Let's do a little bit of a brake rev and see what this thing can do. That was surprisingly quick. 7.42 seconds. Not too bad for a lifted off-road mid-sized truck. My final thoughts of the 2026 GMC Canyon AT4X is I like this truck a lot, but I've driven all the trim levels of the Colorado. I've reviewed 4 of them already for this new model year, and this truck is very similar. You can find a pretty good discount at Rob Green, so for $60,000, how does this compare to the ZR2? How does it compare to the other mid-sized trucks in class? Well, the power is good, the powertrain feels very stout, the front end looks very aggressive. I don't think that this truck is going to age poorly. I think it's going to age really well. I think this is a quality product, at least initial impressions. But you guys tell me in the comments below, what is it like to actually live with one of these? What is it like to own one of these? If you're considering it and you've made it this far, read the comments, listen to the actual owners. It's always good to read the forums and to find out exactly what you want to know. But also, check out the competition. Always look around, test drive a bunch of vehicles, make sure it is the right decision for you. But personally, I like this truck a lot, and this is a truck that I might personally someday consider. But let me know your thoughts below. Comment, subscribe, like the video, all that stuff, and then check out Rob Green and Lasfit because they are fantastic companies to work with. And until next time, see you guys.